Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily. Coming up, Anthony Slater's here to talk about the Warriors having to face the Grizzlies in the play-in, and Zena and I break down the rest of the playoffs, talk about some of our favorite series and the play-in. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Zena.
Morning.
Welcome to the play-in. We're
I
here.
know you wanted me to respond then.
Hey, listen, I just like to leave space in there. Maybe you got something to say. We've made it through the regular season. We are at the play-in. The play-in games are tonight. We've got the Warriors and Grizzlies, and we've got the Hawks and the Magic. We went deep with Anthony Slater, and that comes up after the break on the Warriors and Grizz. So, Zena, I just figured we could just talk a little bit about the rest of the play-in. Atlanta, Orlando. Atlanta basically just lives in this play-in. Orlando, they had a huge drop off the season, dealt with a lot of injuries. I don't know that anyone necessarily is looking forward to this matchup, but it is an interesting clash of styles, like as far as teams go, right? Like you have this Trae Young-led offense versus the Orlando Magic defense. I think that it will be a fun game. And have a playoff atmosphere, but I just don't know, these teams kind of back their way in,
I hate that both of these teams are missing very key Jalen's. I think that makes it for not a true Atlanta-Orlando matchup, but overall, it's going to be fun. You just like to see, what Paolo and Franz are going to be able to do for the Magic, see what Trae Young, always capable of making some sort of statement in these type of games. I'm very curious with what the thing is going to be for him, but I personally am wondering if Orlando's size is just going to overwhelm the Hawks, even though we've been seeing the Hawks, find their way to beat some big time teams this season, especially earlier in the year. As we close out the year, they've been okay. I mean, this is why it's the play-in. It's the battle of average teams. Yeah. And I think they've been more average on the Eastern Conference side than anything. So Magic Hawks going to be a little bit of a meh, but we'll see what happens.
The 9-10 matchups in the West, we've got the Kings and Mavericks. And in the East, we have the Bulls and Heat, and the Heat being the 10 seed. This is just not what we expected from them this season. Obviously, things fell off for post Jimmy Butler trade. But of these two games, which one do you think is going to be the best, I guess, like the most entertaining?
Ooh, I'm looking at them both. I really think the Mavericks Kings will be really interesting. Of course, Mavericks, Klay Thompson, AD, like you've got people that have championship pedigree that want to get their teams back into the mix. The Kings have a chip on their shoulder after the way that their season went. So I definitely think they're going to show up, but I don't see Sabonis doing much with Davis in the middle. I think that's going to be a big problem for the Kings in that game, in that matchup. So I think that will be more interesting to see than the Bulls and the Heat, even though Bulls have been one of the most exciting teams this season.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Kobe White is a great story. I just think the way that he's developed and kind of led that team. If I was Miami, I'd be very concerned because the Bulls just somehow they play hard, right? And that gives them a chance in every single game. And so the Heat, while they may be a better coach team or whatever you want to say, you still got to play with the guys that are on the court. I like what Chicago does in some of these games. With the Mavericks, we have a scenario where the Mavericks could beat the Kings and the Warriors could lose to the Grizzlies. And we have Klay Thompson going in to Chase Center to potentially knock the Warriors out. Or we could wind up with the Kings going in there with a chance to knock the Warriors out. So we've got a lot of drama in the play-in even. I do want to talk a little bit. I do want to talk a little bit about the actual playoff bracket. Obviously, we know the Thunder and the Cavs, two best teams this season by record. We don't know who they're going to face yet. They're going to face one of the play-in teams. Same with the Celtics and the Rockets. But once you get into the bracket, the part of the bracket that's already set, I think you have four compelling matchups. You got the Nuggets and Clippers. You've got the Lakers and Wolves. You've got the Pacers and Bucks, and you've got the Knicks and Pistons. And Zena, I would have a hard time to choose if I had to choose between one of those four to be the most compelling or interesting. So I'm going to make you do it.
Okay. I'm going to go from the West first. And I'm struggling between the Nuggets and the Clippers, just especially because I've seen the Clippers go on a tear right now. Kawhi, James, everyone is fun to watch. And of course, Jokic is just a video game player and he's always fun to watch. And Jamal Murray's been stepping up too. But I just like the drama in the Lakers and Timberwolves. I mean, I don't know if you saw what John Krasinski said that Anthony Edwards said going into the playoffs against the Lakers. About that particular matchup, he says, we don't give a damn. We ready. And I just feel like that sort of just like dog in them going up against Luka and LeBron. It's going to be fun.
They've got the size that they can match up with the Lakers
exactly,
too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not only, that's the thing about the Lakers, they have size on the perimeter just as much as they do on the interior. And that's good for, Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You can go down the line. For the Timberwolves, it's going to be a big man matchup. I feel like this will be a battle of giants going up against them. But I'm thinking Lakers, Timberwolves.
Every one of these series has something like that. Pacers and Bucks, we know that this rivalry started with the NBA Cup, which is kind of fun. And
which is funny.
You've got Giannis, maybe with Dame, maybe not, but Giannis, who I think can win a series by himself. But the Pacers have been so good that I think that if I'm in their side of the bracket, if I'm Cleveland, I'm kind of worried if I have to face the Pacers. And then there's the Pistons with the Knicks. Jalen Brunson, he's not totally back to health yet. The Pistons have looked really good all year. And I'm not saying that they're a better team than the Knicks, but it does feel like the Pistons could be a team that would punch them in the mouth and to be able to follow through. But for me, the most compelling, you said it, Clippers, Nuggets. You've got Kawhi Leonard versus Nikola Jokic as far as the just best players on their teams. James Harden playing some of his best basketball right now. I mean, he in the game against the Warriors, he was electric down the stretch and really took over. And Kawhi has never really had a guy like that. And then Ivica Zubac versus Nikola Jokic is in and of itself is going to be such a battle that I actually don't know who's going to win this series. Normally, with NBA coverage, when you talk about a playoff series, I handicap this team has the best player. So they get a +1 automatically when I'm thinking about a matchup. In this one, normally I would lean towards saying they have Nikola Jokic. He's the best player in the world. They can just win this series. It shouldn't be a problem. Yes, it'll be close. It'll be 6 or 7 games, but Jokic will win. With the way Kawhi's playing, I can't do it.
It bounces out. Yeah, it absolutely bounces out. And the thing about it is it's so interesting when that conversation of best player is at opposite positions, right? Yeah. Nikola Jokic, of course, he can maneuver from the top of the key. He can maneuver within the post. However, most of his offense does rely on him to be in the middle of the floor and people operating around him. Kawhi Leonard can maneuver wherever in transition, in the mid post, outside the key, everywhere he wants. He can get the ball and he could put it up and in a split second. So that's interesting. I mean, I think the West is just going to be more, it's going to be more interesting. I mean, I look at the Knicks and Pistons. The main reason I do like that game is because of the Pistons. I mean, the Pistons haven't won a playoff game since they haven't been in the playoffs since 2019. They haven't won a playoff game in 17 years or something like that. It's just been a crazy long time. Since they've been able to find some success. And now they have a Cade Cunningham and they have some veteranship around them and Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley and Dennis Schroeder and you name it to be able to help support some of these young guys that are kind of getting their first taste of what it looks like to be in this position. And so I just feel like maybe that could be the edge, for them to come into this with a little extra juice than the Knicks that do have more veterans that have been in the playoff world. However, they don't quite have the same edge as, the Pistons. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. And Jalen Brunson, as you mentioned, still trying to come back.
Which of the top seeds, so this is Thunder, Cavs, Rockets, Celtics, which of those do you think is the most vulnerable? And I don't mean in the first round, because that's pretty rare. I mean, the 2-7 matchups could be, especially the Rockets, if they get the Warriors, I think that's an interesting series for them. But which of them do you see as the most vulnerable in the first couple rounds of the playoffs? That's
a great question. I think the Rockets are probably going to be the most vulnerable simply because of their star quality. They are their stars, and I would say that would be Alperen Şengün and Jalen Green, are the most inconsistent of the other stars. in terms of their performances. And so you look at the Celtics, even with Jaylen Brown experiencing or going through his knee pain injections that he recently experienced, you still have significant star power on that team in Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, and you can go down the roster. The Cavaliers have a solid core, more than just two players that show up. And of course, we know the Thunder already. So I look at the Rockets and I'm like, they're more susceptible to, if you shut down Jalen Green or on a given night and you shut down Alperen Şengün, how will the rest of the team operate? And that's what makes them vulnerable.
I do love that they played everyone on the final day to like, hey, we are trying to win this game. But also I love that the Nuggets just blasted those guys like it didn't matter. So that also is funny to me. I think that it's pretty, it's kind of an obvious one there that, the Rockets would be most vulnerable. I mean, S even said it with the Celtics. Jaylen Brown probably could take the first round off. Right. And they should win. And, you could make that argument. Maybe like Cleveland might be in a similar situation. OKC potentially too, right? Like where if someone had to sit a few games, it's probably not going to hurt them. But the Rockets, we already question who's their guy.
Right. Exactly.
We do have a little bit of housekeeping because it was National Firing Day in the NBA. The New Orleans Pelicans moved on.
Not official. We're just naming it that.
Right. Yeah. From GM David Griffin, and the Suns moved on from Mike Budenholzer. Either one of those is a surprise to you, Zena?
No. Actually, you know what? Griffin was a little bit of a surprise. I'm shocked that he went first without Willie Green being a part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that the report was that he actually wanted to part ways with Willie Green earlier in the season, and ownership did not approve of that. And basically that probably resulted in this firing, but Budenholzer, no real
I would say
there.
Look, I think David Griffin's done a really good job of assembling talent, and that talent has just not had health at all. And
very real.
This is how the business works, right? Like it is a results business, not the theoretical stuff. But if I was a team looking for a GM that was good at finding guys who were maybe diamonds in the rough, I would give that guy a call because he has found, Trey Murphy III to me is going to be a star. And David Griffin saw it coming. So yeah, Yves Missy, he's done a pretty good job down there. So, the results don't match the quality, I think, of what they've done as a front office. So anyway, so now we got that out of the way. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Anthony Slater to talk about why the Warriors are going to beat the Grizzlies. If you guys were keeping score at home, you might remember that my bold prediction to start the season was that the Golden State Warriors would have a top 5 defense and that they would make the Western Conference Finals. If they're going to make the conference finals, they're going to have to win a play-in game in Memphis first. And here to talk about it, the Athletic's Anthony Slater. Slater, they're going to win this game?
It's in San Francisco, which helps.
Oh, that's right. It's not in Memphis.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you for the correction.
I mean, that's a pretty big deal.
Huge deal.
Although they have lost a play-in game to Memphis in San Francisco before. They're 0-3 historically in play-in games. But Jimmy Butler's like the play-in king, right? He has played his way to the finals from the play-in. Although last year he got hurt in the play-in. Remember, Kelly Oubre comes down on his knee. That ruins, the Heat's playoff chances, but also Jimmy Butler's relationship. I think it didn't help that he missed those play-in. Whatever. That is a whole other podcast. But they're favored. I think they're favored by 7.5. They just beat Memphis in Memphis. I think they have a lot of stuff going for them in this matchup, including the Grizzlies teams of the past that used to defend them well. No longer exist. They're not a very good defense right now. Jaren Jackson still looms back there as the type of rim protector that's concerning for the Warriors. But Jaren Jackson gets in foul trouble every time he plays the Warriors. They bait him into it. And then once he's off the floor, if he's off the floor, it's Zach Edey in action. It's Luke Kennard every time he touches the floor in action. John Morant has his own defensive, errors. And they don't have the DeAnthony Meltons of the world, the Dylan Brookses, the Kyle Andersons, the guys in the past in this matchup that gave the Warriors trouble on the perimeter.
Anthony, last night when Steve Kerr was asked about his thought process going into this, he mentioned the fact that, play-ins aren't statistically real, right? They don't typically matter in the grand scheme. They vanish, right? But there are very real implications for the Warriors in this season. I mean, the fact that they've even found themselves in this position. When you think about how important it is that the Warriors win this first one and then go on to potentially match up against the Houston Rockets, like just the key of it, like what is it from your perspective? I know my perspective. What's yours?
I mean, it's all about what the alternative is. And the alternative is you go play a Friday night game at home against the winner of Kings Mavericks with the chance for, theoretically Klay Thompson to come into Chase Center and try to end your season. Anthony Davis, is playing currently. The Kings, who ended their season in the play-in last year, and it'll be this like tense NorCal Friday night battle, 7 p.m. Pacific time. And okay, let's say you survive that. You're playing game one in Oklahoma City, 40 hours later, right, probably Sunday afternoon on ABC against a Thunder team that just wrapped up a 68-win season, was able to rest its starters down the stretch, has a fierce home crowd, and you almost would have to punt game one and then win 4 of the next 6 over a team that lost, basically 4 times every 2 months. That's dangerous. So they talked about after they won the Portland game, hey, 3 home cracks at getting into the playoffs. I could hear the argument that they win yesterday. They faced the Lakers in round 1, Luka and LeBron. Like, that's not that appealing. Yeah. You would have got the week off. Maybe the matchup is better than Houston. Maybe it's not. But if they just win Tuesday night, you get 4 days of rest. You get a prep. You got to face a Houston team that, I think sees a little bit of ghosts with the Warriors somewhat. They beat them recently, but I don't hate that matchup for the Warriors. But as you mentioned, if you do lose to Memphis, it's trouble. And either your season's going to end, or I think you're probably going to be in a bad situation with the Thunder.
We got a chance to see a little bit of, we can call it playoff Jimmy. That was a playoff game that they played against the Clippers. He puts up 30. He was a little bit more aggressive. What took so long?
I mean, look, he had 17 free throws 2 games prior. He had, he was 57 of 59 in 7 April games from the free throw line. I think he's upped his aggressiveness lately. His thought process on regular season basketball is pump confidence and shot attempts and usage into some of the role players. Get Brandon Pajemski going, get Moses Moody going. He overly passes. There was a play in the Portland game where he had a layup at the rim, and right as he's about to take it, wide open, he just zings it back out to the perimeter for a 3. And even Steve Kerr was like, that one you want him to take. But it's how he's always operated in the regular season. And as the stakes rise, he tends to play more minutes, 48 minutes in that game, and shoot more. Take it more aggressively. And I mean, I'd expect that moving forward, but he's older. He's not quite, as, strong a finisher as he used to be. The jumper hasn't really been, with him much with the Warriors. He did hit in a couple of nice mid-rangers yesterday, but he hasn't been hitting the 3. That comes and goes. But yes, the version you saw yesterday is the one you want. But honestly, the version you've had the last 2 months has completely turned around your season. He's kind of the least of their concerns.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the least of their concerns, I think offense has been their biggest concern, especially with him in the mix of it, just being able to figure out how do you space around Jimmy. And of course, last night we saw Gary Payton II be this option for the offense in terms of ball movement. And that was, per your report, that was the main reason as to why Jonathan Kuminga sat in terms of being able to keep the ball and offense flowing. How is that going to help them set up in terms with Memphis and anyone they're going to face now, long, athletic, just like the Clippers, going into the Western Conference playoffs?
Yeah, Gary Payton is their best perimeter defender, and John Morant's going to be in the building. Gary Payton is their best guy to put on John Morant, but that comes with issues, finishing issues at the rim, spacing. You said they sag off. Now look, that sag off Kuminga too. He's more willing to take the 3. He has not been making it since he's come back. Steve Kerr went away from him for several reasons, but he's been looking at lineup data. Lineup data since Kuminga's been back has not been good. I'm curious if you do see at least maybe a first quarter stint of Kuminga to see what type of Kuminga you get, because when he's got some verve and he's rebounding, he can be, an asset to them. You saw it in that Lakers win they had in crypto a week and a half ago. He closed that night. It was one of his better games. But we could do about a 3-hour podcast and really break down the Kuminga situation, but I don't think we have time for that today. So, the question is who's your 5th closer? Moses Moody was really good in the first half. Awesome. I think he had 3 blocks, 2 steals. He was kind of everywhere. He hasn't been shooting it as well lately, but he's at least more of a threat that the defense has to get out there on. I'm surprised you only saw, I think, 3 minutes in the fourth quarter in OT combined. It was a lot of Peyton. That was probably a mistake in retrospect. You have Quentin Post as an option as a space 5, but he looked a little bit, overwhelmed by the moment a little bit in that game. I mean, and the Clippers are very good. Like the Clippers played a really good game. Kawhi was awesome. Zubac was great. Right. Harden had like 38. That was like maybe the best, high stakes game he's ever played against the Warriors. If you go back to his Houston
he hit
days,
those two big shots in overtime, and I've never seen him do that against Golden State.
Yeah. And Steph had a bad game. I mean, I know he ended up at 33 and he had some big shots, but he was cold early and he had 8 turnovers. Including some crucial ones. So, I mean, by the way, he has a thumb.
I was going to ask you if you're worried about the thumb, Yeah, I mean, he's saying no, but he always says no, right? Right. It's been hurting him all year, and he re-sprained it in Portland, and this one seemed like it's bothering him, but he'll still make threes and everything. Jimmy Butler got kneed by Kawhi Leonard in the thigh. Yeah, he says he's fine, but he was real. He was really limping post-game in the locker room. And then Draymond Green left the game for like 10 minutes to the locker room after he took a neck thing. So reminder about this team's age and, the accumulation of a NBA regular season. So there are concerns in many ways. And one of the concerns, wrapping it back to your question, is like who Steve Kerr uses as like the 4th, 5th guys in some of these certain lineups. I mean, I think it's probably going to defend, especially against Memphis, right? Like, what does the foul situation for Jaren Jackson look like when you get down the stretch of this game? I mean, the last game with these guys, it fell apart when they got Jaren Jackson into foul trouble. And so you have to think that that's probably the game plan. I'm assuming this more aggressive Jimmy Butler. But, Kuminga, this could be a spot where, like you said, first quarter Kuminga minutes just to see if he's going to bring anything. I mean, to be able to be aggressive, attack the basket. He's another guy who draws fouls. I mean, maybe that could play in.
It sounds great in theory, but I'm not sure the head coach is where, pundits are at, or, other people believe that, like, at least giving him a shot. He completely DMP'd him in year 4, right before his restricted free agency. We'll see. I think if they get into a Houston series, Kuminga has games of 33 points, 20 points to 23 points this season against the Rockets. His athleticism historically has played well against Houston's. And that's more of a series where it's like feel out. I think Steve Kerr's concern on these games are these one game high stakes. You win, you move on, you lose, you kind of like take a stair step down, just like the Memphis game. So he does not appear to trust Jonathan Kuminga in those type of environments. So like, I don't really expect to see him in the rotation. Maybe I'm wrong, but that seems to be the head coach's choice right now.
Yeah, I understand why GP2 comes in from a elevation. I said this on yesterday's pod, like from an elevation of understanding how to space, when to attack the basket, also the ball movement. What I don't understand, I struggle to understand, is how in year 4, as you mentioned, Slater, that trust has not been built, or the evolution of Jonathan Kuminga to fit this system has not happened yet. But that, again, is another 3-hour podcast.
Yeah, that's for sometime in the summer when they're thinking about trading him. You know what I mean? Like,
I assume I'm going to have a story that details it at some point heading into restricted free agency. I mean, part of it is like he's not doing what they want him to do, as far as like they want him to be this like slashing Sean Marion type wing. He obviously wants like he views himself long term as like a 20+ point per game scorer. I think the Jimmy Butler trade, it created a trickier environment for him where like Jimmy Butler's like an isolation, slower, standstill guy who needs the spacing. Kuminga is no longer getting the ball as much. And like, it's like a mini version of like the Jason Tatum issue this summer, where Jason Tatum's getting DMPs and Steve Kerr's getting, slammed for that. And it was like, well, Jason Tatum's kind of the 4th or 5th guy offensively out here, and he's not as good as Derek White at being a role player, right? Well, Kuminga is in this environment, particularly in a Draymond Jimmy crunch spacing lineup, a role player that doesn't do the type of stuff like space the floor, slash and cut, not want usage, defend hard in transition, like all that. Like he does need to defend a little bit better. But part of the reason he's not doing some of that stuff is because he's sitting here in year 4, like, you've never believed in me. But again, I don't want to go down this road right now. So.
My question was going to be about Memphis, and my question was going to be about Memphis and the Warriors, particularly like, what are the big advantages you think each team has over the other going into this matchup?
Yeah, I think, Memphis is still very dangerous offensively. Ja Morant went like 14 of 22 in their last game, had 36 points. It was he was celebrating too. I think if y'all remember some of those threes, but he's really tough for them to guard. And, we'll see, Gary will help them a little bit. He was not available in that game. Neither was Kuminga. But generally, like they're gonna struggle to stay in front of him, and then when they can't stay in front of him, and they're gonna have to overhelp. And then how many threes did Jaren Jackson hit? How Desmond Bane and some of the others? Santi Aldama was like a -26 in that game, and that was he was playing a lot of the minutes that Jaren Jackson went off the floor because of foul trouble. And then the other thing is, like, if Jaren Jackson has like a defensive player of the year type game where he stays out of foul trouble, he has 4 blocks and alters 8 other shots, and Draymond's kind of hesitation, floaters, and Jimmy's kind of passing out because he doesn't know if he can finish over him. Like that could change the game. So that's an advantage that I would say Memphis kind of has over the Warriors. But I just think Memphis is not overall, besides Jaren Jackson, very good defensively. Zach Edey's going to be a target, and they're just probably going to try to run him around in that building. And that game, I mean, you mentioned Steph Curry had 52 points and 12 threes. There was like so many breakdowns by the Grizzlies. And that included what I thought, like Jalen Wells is one of their better options on the perimeter. He was guarding Steph Curry. He's out for the season. So they're going to have trouble with Steph, I think. Yeah.
The bottom fell out for them. I don't think they've got much of a chance. Anthony Slater, go and read him at The Athletic. That's going to do it for today's show. We're in the play-in. Guys, play-in, playoffs, I think it all feels the same, but we've made it. For Zena Keita, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.